Marcus Reed stood motionless on the side of the road, hands visible and steady, while rain drummed against his sedan. The deputy's flashlight beam cut through the downpour, sweeping over him with deliberate cruelty. "Well, look at you," Logan Burke said with a quiet laugh, pointing at Marcus like he was something to dissect, his finger hovering inches from his chest as a few passing drivers slowed to stare. "Same little frog, just dressed up better." Marcus gave him nothing. No flinch, no words, only that calm, unreadable expression. "New car, clean shirt," Logan continued, stepping closer, his voice low with satisfaction. "And you still end up right back here." He took Marcus's wrists and snapped the cuffs on with practiced ease, the metal clicking tight. Without urgency, Logan lifted the ID, glancing down at it as a faint smirk formed, as if everything had lined up exactly the way he expected. Marcus didn't resist. He didn't speak. He simply stood there, composed. And Logan had no idea the man he had just cuffed was the one who would soon sit above him, deciding exactly how this story would end. Logan's hand pressed against the sedan door, keeping it firmly shut. His face hovered inches from Marcus's, his breath smelling of coffee and mint gum. "Get out of the vehicle now," he ordered, his voice dropping to a threatening whisper, "or I'll drag you out myself." Marcus kept his hands on the steering wheel exactly where they belonged. He breathed slowly, controlling the anger rising in his chest. This was the same voice, the same cruel smile that had followed him through school hallways years earlier. "I'd like to see your supervisor," Marcus said calmly. Logan barked a laugh. "You don't get to make demands. Not here." He stepped back and flung the door open. Out. The beam from Logan's flashlight blinded Marcus as he carefully stepped from the car. The night air was cool against his skin, crickets chirping in the surrounding fields. Above them, stars dotted the black sky, distant witnesses to what was unfolding. "Hands on the hood," Logan ordered. Marcus placed his palms flat against the warm metal of his sedan. The second patrol car pulled up behind them, its headlights casting long shadows across the asphalt. Another officer emerged but stayed by his vehicle, watching. "Look at you," Logan sneered, circling Marcus like a shark. "Nice suit, fancy car. Still the same stuck-up kid who thought books would save him." Marcus remained silent, staring straight ahead. "Remember back in school," Logan continued, tapping his flashlight against his palm, "when I found you in the library with that scholarship essay you were so proud of?" Marcus's jaw tightened. That day, Logan had taken his essay, read it mockingly to his friends, then ripped it to pieces. "I'm going to search your vehicle now," Logan announced loudly, clearly performing for his dashboard camera. "I have reason to believe there may be illegal substances present." "On what grounds?" Marcus asked, his voice level despite the humiliation burning in his chest. "I smell something suspicious," Logan replied with a smirk. "And you seem nervous. Very nervous." The lie hung in the air between them. Marcus knew exactly what was happening. This was no random stop. This was personal. Logan began rifling through Marcus's car, tossing aside papers and opening the glove compartment roughly. Marcus watched from his position against the hood while rain began to fall in a light drizzle. Cars occasionally passed by, slowing to gawk at the black man in business clothes spread against the car, while officers searched his vehicle. Each pair of headlights that crawled past felt like another layer of humiliation. "Sir, I need you to spread your legs wider," Logan called out, loud enough for the passing traffic to hear. Marcus complied, his face burning with anger and shame. The position was deliberately degrading. Hands splayed on the hood, legs spread, back exposed, just as Logan wanted it. The second officer finally approached. "Everything okay here, Burke?" he asked, a young man with uncertainty in his voice. "Just fine, Ellis," Logan cut him off sharply. Mr. Reed here was driving erratically, and now I'm finding some interesting things in his vehicle. Marcus turned his head slightly. That's not true. I was driving perfectly within the speed limit. Shut up, Logan snapped, all pretense of professionalism gone. Don't you dare contradict me. Rain fell harder now, soaking through Marcus's shirt. Water ran down his face as Logan continued searching, moving to the trunk. Remember when Coach put you on the track team? Logan called out, digging through Marcus's luggage. You thought you were so special. The only reason he picked you was because he felt sorry for you. Marcus closed his eyes briefly. That old lie. He had broken 3 school records that year. Nothing to say, Logan taunted, slamming the trunk shut and walking back toward Marcus. You always were quiet when cornered. A semi-truck roared past, its headlights illuminating the scene for a moment. Marcus pressed against his car, Logan standing over him, the younger officer watching uncertainly. Burke, maybe we should, the young officer began. I got this, Ellis. Logan cut him off sharply. He leaned close to Marcus's ear. You know, I always knew you'd end up back here. All that big talk about leaving, making something of yourself. He chuckled. And here you are, right back where you belong. Marcus kept his eyes forward, rain dripping from his chin. Years melted away in that moment. He was that boy again, trapped and powerless. Logan grabbed Marcus's shoulder and spun him around, pressing him back against the car. This night is going to end the way it should have years ago, he said, his voice low and dangerous, with you remembering exactly who's in charge around here. Marcus stood beside his car, hands visible. Rain coming down harder now. The puddles on Hollow Creek Road reflected the flashing blue lights, creating eerie patterns across the wet asphalt. Logan circled him like a predator, flashlight beam cutting through the darkness, deliberately shining it in Marcus's eyes each time he passed. The second deputy hung back, shifting his weight from one foot to the other, his discomfort visible even in the dim light. Arms behind your head, fingers locked, Logan barked, his voice carrying across the empty road. Marcus complied, his jaw tight. Logan stepped forward and yanked Marcus's arms back with unnecessary force. What's the matter? Too good to speak now? All that fancy education make you forget how to talk to regular folks? Marcus winced as Logan's fingers dug into his wrists. Look at you in this expensive shirt, Logan sneered, running a rough hand across Marcus's shoulder. Bet you paid more for this than my daddy made in a month. He shoved Marcus hard against the hood, the impact knocking the breath from his lungs. Remember the day I found you in the west hallway by the chemistry labs? Logan's voice dropped lower, meant just for Marcus's ears. You had that scholarship application all filled out. What happened when I found it again? Marcus said nothing, but his muscles tightened at the memory. Burke, maybe we should just... The second deputy started. Shut it, Ellis, Logan snapped. Mr. Big Shot here needs to be searched properly. Logan's pat-down was deliberately rough, his hands invasive as he worked his way down Marcus's legs. The rain plastered Marcus's shirt to his skin, water streaming down his face as passing headlights illuminated the scene. Remember all those nights walking home in the dark? Logan whispered. After everyone saw what happened at the pep rally? After we took your clothes? Marcus's throat tightened. Years had passed, but the shame felt fresh, immediate. Stand up straight while I check your trunk, Logan ordered, shoving him upright. Marcus watched in the side mirror as Logan popped the trunk and began rifling through his overnight bag. The second deputy, Ellis, stood partially blocking the view from the road. Logan's body shifted, his shoulder moving in a quick, practiced motion. Something slipped from his jacket into the bag. Well, well, what do we have here? Logan announced loudly, his voice theatrical as he pulled out a small packet. Ellis, Come take a look at this. Marcus's blood ran cold. The setup was happening right in front of him, brazen and confident. Deputy Burke, Marcus said, his voice steady despite the rain running down his face. I suggest you call your supervisor right now. Oh, you giving orders now? Logan laughed, slapping the packet against his palm. I'm suggesting you think very carefully about what you're doing, Marcus continued, turning slowly to face him. As of yesterday morning, I am the state attorney for this district. Ellis stiffened, his eyes widening. The proclamation hung in the air between them. For one breath, Logan went pale, his confidence cracking. Then his face hardened into something worse than arrogance, fear mixed with rage. Turn around and put your hands behind your back, Logan growled. Did you hear what I said? Marcus asked. I heard you obstructing justice and making threats, Logan said loudly for the benefit of his body camera. And I found suspicious substances in your possession. Before Marcus could speak again, Logan shoved him face first across the hood. The metal was cold against Marcus's cheek as Logan wrenched his arms back and slapped handcuffs on his wrists. A minivan slowed as it passed. Faces pressed against the windows, witnessing the state attorney's humiliation without knowing who he was. Nice title, Logan whispered, cinching the cuffs tighter than necessary. But it doesn't change what you are. It doesn't change what I am. And it sure as hell doesn't change who's in control tonight. The county station's fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as Logan paraded Marcus through the intake area. Deputies turned to stare. Marcus kept his back straight despite the handcuffs cutting into his wrists, his suit jacket wrinkled and damp from the rain. Got ourselves a real special case tonight, Logan announced, shoving Marcus toward the booking desk with unnecessary force. This one thinks his fancy job means the law doesn't apply. The booking sergeant glanced up, his face shifting from boredom to unease when he saw Marcus. This is Marcus Reed, Logan interrupted. Claims he's some big-shot state attorney. Still had drugs in his trunk. Marcus studied the room quietly, cataloging every face, every reaction. The night shift wasn't busy, just a few deputies, the booking sergeant, and a clerk typing at a computer in the corner. The clerk's eyes never lifted from her screen. I need the evidence properly logged, Logan continued, dropping a plastic bag on the counter. Traffic stop turned search. Subject became combative. Marcus noticed the paperwork already waiting, forms half completed, as if they had been prepared in advance. The booking sergeant's eyes darted toward a ceiling camera. Camera B3 is down for maintenance, the sergeant said casually. Let's process him in intake room 2. The blind spot was too convenient. Marcus watched as Logan placed the planted evidence bag on the counter, already properly sealed and labeled. Too neat. Too prepared. I formally request preservation of all body camera footage, dispatch logs, and dashboard recordings from tonight's incident, Marcus said clearly, his voice carrying through the room. I'm also invoking my right to legal counsel. Logan laughed. Listen to him. Always did talk like he swallowed a textbook. The front door opened, and Sheriff Harlan Mercer walked in. He didn't look surprised or rushed, just calm, controlled, and precisely on cue. What's the situation here? Mercer asked, though his eyes said he already knew. Logan straightened immediately. Traffic violation on Hollow Creek Road. Subject had contraband in the vehicle and became uncooperative. Marcus watched Mercer's face closely. There was no shock there, no confusion. Just the measured performance of a man following a script. Mr. Reed claims he's the new state attorney, the booking sergeant added. Is that so? Mercer's expression didn't change. Uncuff him, Deputy Burke. But Sheriff, now Deputy. The cuffs came off. Marcus rubbed his wrists, noting the bruise already forming on the left one. My apologies for the confusion, Mr. Reed, Mercer said, his voice smooth as polished stone. Seems we've had a misunderstanding. There's no misunderstanding, Marcus replied. Your deputy pulled me over without cause, planted evidence in my vehicle, and falsified a report. While they spoke, Marcus noticed Logan slip behind the booking desk, quietly editing details on the computer screen. The clerk who had been typing earlier was suddenly busy filing papers, her back turned to the scene. "Serious accusations," Mercer said. "But let's focus on resolving tonight's situation. You've had a long evening." "I want all records preserved," Marcus repeated. "Body cameras, dispatch calls, booking logs, everything." "Of course," Mercer nodded. "We follow procedure here." But Marcus had seen enough to know what procedure meant in this station. The missing camera footage, the pre-prepared forms, the quiet edits happening behind the desk. "Maybe next time you visit our county," Mercer continued loudly enough for everyone to hear, "you'll remember that respect for law enforcement applies to everyone, even state attorneys. We're just doing our jobs out here, keeping these roads safe." The lecture wasn't for Marcus. It was for the others watching, for the record being carefully constructed. Mercer was building the narrative. Arrogant outsider, humble local officers, unfortunate misunderstanding. "You're free to go," Mercer finally said, extending his hand toward the door. "Deputy Ellis will return your personal effects." Marcus collected his wallet, keys, and phone in silence. He noted how Ellis avoided eye contact as he handed over the items. "Let me walk you out," Mercer offered, placing a heavy hand on Marcus's shoulder. They stepped outside into the pre-dawn darkness. The station parking lot was empty except for Marcus's car and a few patrol vehicles. "Some advice, Mr. Reed," Mercer said quietly as they reached Marcus's sedan. "Some roads are easier if left untraveled, especially for men in your position." Marcus pulled into his mother's driveway, just as the sky began softening from black to deep blue. His headlights swept across the small wooden house where he had grown up, the place he had fought so hard to escape, and the place that somehow still felt like home. The porch light flicked on. Before he had even cut the engine, the front door opened, spilling warm light onto the steps as two silhouettes appeared there, his mother and, surprisingly, his sister Sophia. He didn't even make it halfway up the path before Evelyn rushed down to meet him, wrapping her arms around him with fierce protectiveness. "Thank God," she whispered, pulling back to examine his face in the dim light. "Are you hurt?" "I'm okay, Mama." Marcus kept his voice steady, though exhaustion pulled at every word. Sophia hugged him next, her school principal composure cracking. "I got here as soon as Mom called. What happened?" "Let's get inside," Marcus said, glancing at the empty street. Small towns had eyes everywhere, especially at strange hours. The kitchen smelled of fresh coffee and worry. Marcus sank into a familiar wooden chair at the table, the same one he had sat in as a boy. Sophia pushed a steaming mug toward him, while Evelyn stood with her arms crossed, studying his face. "They actually arrested you?" Sophia asked, her voice tight with disbelief. "Logan Burke pulled me over," Marcus explained. "Same Logan from high school. He recognized me and decided to make a point." "That boy was always poison," Evelyn muttered, finally sitting down. "Now they give him a badge and a gun." Marcus described the stop, the search, the planted evidence. He kept his voice measured, despite the humiliation still burning in his chest. "But they let you go," Sophia said. "That's something, right? They realized who you are now." She pulled out her phone, scrolling through notifications. Her expression suddenly hardened. "What is it?" Marcus asked. Sophia turned the screen toward him. "It's already online. Someone's telling a different story." Marcus leaned forward. A local community page displayed a post from just minutes earlier. Breaking. New State Attorney Marcus Reed detained after threatening officers during routine stop. Sources say Reed became belligerent, demanded special treatment, and resisted lawful commands. The comments section overflowed with people claiming to have heard from someone at the station that Marcus had been drunk, disorderly, and pulled the race card. "That's impossible," Marcus said, reading through the fabrications. This was posted while I was still driving here. They've had this playbook for decades, Evelyn said, her voice heavy with recognition. Plant the lie first. Make the truth. Chase it forever. Marcus pushed the phone away, refusing to let anger take control. He stood up and pulled out his own phone. What are you doing? Sophia asked. Making calls. This stops now. For the next half hour, Marcus worked with focused intensity. He called his chief deputy at the state attorney's office, explaining the situation and requesting immediate preservation order for all records related to the stop. He contacted the state police to formally request an outside investigation. Then he dialed a number he hadn't used in months. Daniel? It's Marcus Reed. I need your help. Daniel Voss was an investigative journalist who had broken stories on police corruption across the state. He and Marcus had worked together on a public integrity case the previous year. You sure you want to go this route? Sophia asked after he hung up. These people will come after you harder. They already have, Marcus replied. As if summoned by his words, the rumble of an engine grew louder outside. Headlights swept across the living room curtains as a vehicle slowed in front of the house. All three of them went still, listening. The harsh crack of something hitting metal broke the silence. A male voice shouted from the street. Big titles don't mean anything here. Powerful people still bleed the same. Tires squealed as the vehicle accelerated away. Sophia rushed to the window while Marcus moved to block Evelyn. Pickup truck, Sophia reported. Couldn't see the plates. They moved to the front door together. On the lawn, Marcus saw their mailbox dented, a soda bottle lying in the grass beneath it. Liquid dripped from the damaged metal. We should call the sheriff's department, Sophia said, already pulling out her phone. No. Marcus's voice was firm as he placed his hand over hers. Not them. Marcus, someone just threatened us. And who do you think sent them? He asked quietly. We don't call the people who started this for protection. The sky had lightened enough now to see the damage clearly. Marcus walked down to the mailbox, picking up the bottle, while dawn spread across the eastern sky. Standing there, he suddenly understood with perfect clarity what he was facing. This wasn't about a traffic stop gone wrong, or one deputy with an old grudge. The speed of the response, the coordinated story, Mercer's lack of surprise. It was all too organized, too prepared. Marcus turned the bottle in his hand, looking back at the house where his mother and sister stood watching him from the porch. This was never just about one night on Hollow Creek Road. The diner sat just beyond the county line, a weathered building with a rusting sign and windows that needed washing. Inside, the morning crowd had thinned to a few truckers nursing coffee at the counter. Marcus slid into a booth in the back corner, positioning himself to see the door. Daniel Voss arrived 5 minutes later. In his 50s, with salt and pepper hair and tired eyes that missed nothing, he moved with the confident stride of a man who had spent decades chasing corruption. He sat across from Marcus without ordering. You look like hell, Daniel said, taking in Marcus's wrinkled suit and the dark circles under his eyes. I've had better nights. A waitress approached, but Daniel waved her away with a smile. Once she was out of earshot, he leaned forward. Tell me everything, start to finish. Marcus walked through the events methodically. The initial stop, Logan's recognition, the planted evidence, the booking process that felt rehearsed rather than routine. He described Mercer's arrival, how the sheriff had acted disappointed, but not surprised. The paperwork was ready, Marcus said quietly. Camera angles conveniently blocked. Everything moved too smoothly. Daniel's expression grew grimmer with each detail. He took notes in a small pad, his handwriting cramped, but precise. When Marcus finished, the journalist sat back, tapping his pen against the table. This isn't the first time, Daniel said. Not even close. You've heard things? For years. Selective stops targeting specific drivers. Dash cam footage that mysteriously corrupts. Audio that gets partially erased. Daniel flipped back through his notebook. 3 sealed settlements in the last few years, involving excessive force during traffic stops. All victims were Black or Latino. All paperwork perfectly clean. Marcus's jaw tightened. And Mercer? County Golden Boy, 4th-generation law enforcement. His father was sheriff before him. His grandfather before that. Daniel's eyes narrowed. But under that polish, I've had sources hint at skimmed seizure money. Evidence that disappears. Witnesses who suddenly can't remember what they saw. Names? None willing to go on record. Daniel sighed. Until now, it's been whispers and patterns. Nothing solid enough to print. Marcus pulled out his phone and showed Daniel the online posts attacking his character. They moved fast, Daniel observed. Almost like they were ready for you. The waitress returned with coffee neither had ordered. They waited until she left again. I filed preservation demands this morning, Marcus said. For the dash cam, body cameras, dispatch audio, everything. Daniel's expression darkened. You'll be lucky to get half of it. What do you mean? Friend in the county clerk's office just texted me. Your stop is already logged as having technical difficulties. Body cam listed as corrupted. Marcus's hand tightened around his coffee cup. That fast? That's how they work. Evidence vanishes before anyone official asks for it. Marcus drove back toward his mother's house, mind racing. Daniel had promised to dig deeper, to check with former employees who might talk. But without the footage, proving what happened would be nearly impossible. His phone rang. Sophia's voice came through, tight with anger. Someone filed a complaint against me at school, she said without preamble, claiming I've been inappropriate with students. Marcus pulled over, gripping the steering wheel. What? Principal called me in. Anonymous tip came this morning. Claims I've been showing favoritism, making inappropriate comments. Her voice cracked. It's complete garbage, but they have to investigate. This is them, Marcus said. They're hitting us from all sides. Mom's getting calls too, hang-ups, heavy breathing. Sophia's voice lowered. Marcus, what are we dealing with? Something bigger than we thought. By evening, Marcus met Daniel again, this time at a gas station halfway between towns. The journalist looked energized, despite the dark circles under his eyes. Found someone willing to talk, he said. Former dispatcher named Helen. Retired a couple of years ago. She says patrol routes get shifted all the time based on who's driving where. What does that mean? It means sometimes deputies get deliberately steered towards certain vehicles. Daniel's eyes locked on Marcus's. She thinks someone might have directed Logan toward you specifically. That would mean they knew I was coming, Marcus said slowly. Exactly. Daniel handed him a scrap of paper with a phone number. She'll talk to you, but only once, only in person, and only if you promise to protect her. Night had fallen by the time Marcus drove Sophia home from the school, where she had spent hours defending herself against fabricated accusations. As they approached Evelyn Street, he spotted it. A county sheriff's cruiser parked across from the house, engine running, headlights off. Marcus slowed, eyes fixed on the dark shape. Is that? Sophia started. Yes, Marcus said, his voice steady despite the anger building inside him. They're watching us. The cruiser's interior light briefly illuminated when the driver shifted, revealing a silhouette that made no attempt to hide. They were being watched, and whoever sat in that car wanted them to know it. Marcus settled into the conference room chair, his eyes burning from lack of sleep. The city office building felt like a fortress compared to the exposed feeling of his mother's house. Reinforced glass windows, security at every entrance, and most importantly, no Sheriff Mercer's deputies lurking outside. Daniel arrived minutes later, carrying a cardboard box filled with photocopies and file folders. 2 of Marcus's most trusted legal aides, Taryn Fisher and Marcus Alvarez, joined them, closing the door with a soft click. Everything secure? Marcus asked. Alvarez nodded. Building security knows not to let anyone from Mercer's department up without clearance. I've also locked down access to our case files. Good. Marcus opened his laptop. Let's start with the complaints. They spread documents across the table like puzzle pieces. Traffic stop reports, internal affairs complaints, settlement agreements with confidentiality clauses, all obtained through various legal channels and Daniel's sources. Look at these stops, Taryn said, marking locations on a county map. The majority of discretionary searches involved black drivers. Most happened within a couple of miles of county lines. Marcus frowned. Right where there's less chance of witnesses. Daniel pushed forward a spreadsheet. And look at the evidence issues. Body cameras failing at the same times, dash cam footage corrupted, audio missing from key moments. It's not random, Alvarez added. The pattern repeats across different deputies, different shifts, same results. Marcus studied a list of names. How many cases were dismissed before discovery? Several in the last few years, Taryn replied. All had the same preliminary objection filing. And who reviewed those dismissals? Marcus asked, though he already suspected. Daniel pointed to a signature block. Sheriff Harlan Mercer. Every time. The room fell silent as they absorbed the implications. This wasn't just Logan Burke acting alone. This was systematic. There's something else, Daniel said, pulling out yellowed newspaper clippings and school records. I dug into the archives about that locker room theft when you were in school. Marcus's jaw tightened. The memory still stung. Being accused of stealing equipment when he had been nowhere near the locker room, nearly losing his scholarship. The shame of standing before teachers who had suddenly lost faith in him. The witness statements, Daniel continued. 3 students initially said they saw nothing unusual that day. 2 weeks later, 2 of them changed their stories, suddenly remembering seeing you near the lockers. I remember, Marcus said quietly. Logan started the rumors, said I was desperate for money. But look who signed the witness revision forms. Daniel pointed to a familiar name at the bottom of the page. Officer Greg Mercer, Harlan's brother, who was school resource officer then. And this student who changed his testimony? His father was Logan's football coach. Alvarez whistled low. They were all connected. And here's the kicker, Daniel said, sliding forward a photocopied letter. Your scholarship recommendation was initially signed by Principal Donovan, then suddenly withdrawn after the theft accusation. Donovan retired that summer with a generous package. Guess who was on the school board that approved it? Mercer, Marcus said, the pieces fitting together. This wasn't just kids being cruel. This was systematic. They were learning how to manipulate records, pressure witnesses. Practice, Marcus finished. Practice for what they're doing now with badges and authority. His phone rang, interrupting the grim realization. His mother's number. Marcus? Evelyn's voice trembled. Someone came by last night after you left. They spray-painted the fence. He put the phone on speaker. What did it say? Fraud. In red, big letters right across the front. She paused. Sophia's out there scrubbing, but it's soaking into the wood. Anyone see anything? Daniel asked. Mrs. Wilson next door was peeking through her curtains when I went out this morning. Turned away when I looked over. Nobody's saying anything. I'll be right there, Marcus said, already gathering his files. 20 minutes later, he pulled up to his mother's house. Sophia stood by the fence, scrubbing furiously at red paint that had seeped deep into the weathered wood. Her sleeves were rolled up, hands raw from the chemical cleaner. It won't come off, she said, not looking up. I've tried everything. The word fraud remained visible despite her efforts, bleeding into the grain like an accusation the house itself would now carry. Mrs. Wilson's curtain twitched across the street. Other neighbors had found reasons to be in their yards, watching without offering help. Let it go, Marcus said gently, taking the brush from Sophia's hands. And let them win? She demanded. Her voice cracking. No, Marcus said, standing tall beside the damaged fence, and neighbors pretended not to watch. We're going to replace it, and then we're going to make sure everyone knows exactly what happened here. He put his arm around his sister, then his mother, who had joined them, staring at the vandalism that had marked her home. I promise you both, Marcus said, loud enough for the watching neighbors to hear, we will not be hunted in silence. That afternoon, Marcus met Daniel outside a small auto repair shop on the edge of town. The building sat back from the road, its weathered sign reading Sutter's Auto in faded blue letters. A few cars sat in various stages of repair on the gravel lot. You sure about this guy? Marcus asked, straightening his tie. Daniel nodded. Raymond's been here 30 years. No record, pays his taxes, keeps to himself. He called me this morning after seeing your name in my initial story draft. Said he was there that night. They walked into the dim garage, where the smell of oil and metal hung heavy in the air. A radio played country music from a shelf cluttered with tools. A pair of legs stuck out from under a lifted truck. Raymond? Daniel called out. It's Daniel Voss. I brought someone to talk to you. The legs slid out, revealing a man in his 50s with thinning hair and grease-stained hands. He wiped them nervously on a red rag and glanced around before nodding toward a small office in the back. In there, Raymond Sutter said quietly. Not out here. The office was barely big enough for the three of them. Raymond closed the door and pulled the blinds. I didn't sleep last night, he admitted, his fingers fidgeting with the rag. Not after I called you. This town has long memories. Marcus leaned forward. Mr. Sutter, I appreciate you talking to us. You said you saw the stop. Raymond nodded. Was heading home late, taking the back road to avoid the usual checkpoint. He looked down. I slowed when I saw the lights. Thought it might be the checkpoint moved. What did you see? Daniel asked. Raymond's eyes darted to the door. That Deputy Burke. He had you against the car. Rough. Way rougher than needed for a traffic stop. He looked directly at Marcus. I know rough stops. My boy got one some time ago. But this was personal. What about the trunk? Marcus pressed. He opened it while you were facing the other way. Did something quick, real quick, then acted all surprised when he looked inside again. Raymond shook his head. I'm not blind. I know a setup. Would you be willing to make a statement? Marcus asked, removing a small recorder from his pocket. Official, on record. Raymond hesitated, then nodded. Your face, man. That's what got me. The way you looked. Dignified. But I know humiliation when I see it. Reminded me of my boy that night. Some things ain't right. Badge or no badge. For 20 minutes, Raymond detailed everything. The excessive force, the planted evidence, the second deputy who watched it all happen. Marcus felt the first real surge of hope since the arrest. Physical evidence might disappear, but eyewitness testimony could crack the case wide open. After securing the statement, they thanked Raymond. As they walked to their cars, Daniel's phone buzzed. 2 more, he said, reading the message. Former victims willing to talk. Both stopped by Burke some time ago. Both cases dismissed under questionable circumstances. This could break it open, Marcus said, if we can establish a pattern. We need to move fast, Daniel cut in, before Mercer realizes what we're building. Marcus felt momentum shifting. For the first time, truth had a fighting chance. That feeling lasted exactly 3 hours. Marcus was reviewing case files when Daniel called. We have a problem, Daniel said. His voice was tight. Cruiser's been parked outside Sutter's shop for the last hour. Coincidence? No such thing in this county. By 7 that evening, Marcus's phone rang. Raymond's name flashed on the screen, but it went to voicemail before he could answer. When the message came through, Raymond's voice trembled with unmistakable fear. Mr. Reed, I'm sorry, but I need to retract my statement. I was confused about what I saw. Lighting was bad. I was tired. I made a mistake. His voice dropped to a whisper. Please don't contact me again. For everyone's sake. Marcus played the message twice, hearing the fear beneath the words. He saved it, labeled it evidence of witness intimidation, and added it to his growing file. His phone buzzed with a text from Sophia. Emergency school board meeting called for tomorrow. They're reviewing the complaint. Marcus, they're coming after my job now. He set the phone down carefully, controlling his breathing the way he had learned to do in court when cases turned ugly. The system was reaching for everyone around him. Raymond had been silenced. Sophia was being targeted. Their mother's home had been vandalized. This wasn't just about covering up one bad traffic stop anymore. It was about crushing anyone who threatened to expose the truth. They'll keep coming, he whispered to himself in the empty room. But so will I. The following morning, rain tapped against the windows of Marcus's temporary office as he reviewed legal filings. The click of laptop keys and rustling papers filled the quiet room until Melissa, one of his most trusted legal aides, burst through the door. Someone wants to talk, she said, slightly out of breath. County evidence tech. Says it's urgent, but he's terrified of being seen with us. Marcus looked up. Name? Jacob Wilkins, 24, junior technician, 8 months on the job. She handed Marcus a notepad with scribbled information. Wants to meet at Riverfront Park in an hour. Says he needs to be somewhere public but quiet. Marcus checked his watch. Could be a setup? I don't think so, Melissa said. Kid sounded like he might throw up from nerves. 40 minutes later, Marcus sat on a bench near the park's eastern edge, raindrops falling through the trees above him. The park was mostly empty on a wet weekday morning. Just a few joggers and an old man walking a spotted dog. A skinny young man in a gray hoodie approached, glancing nervously over his shoulder. His face was pale, hands shoved deep in his pockets. Mr. Reed, his voice cracked. Jacob. Marcus nodded, gesturing to the space beside him. Jacob sat, keeping distance between them. He spoke in hurried whispers. I shouldn't be here. If they find out. He swallowed hard. But what happened to you wasn't right. Take your time, Marcus said quietly. Deputy Burke doesn't know about our backup system. Jacob's words tumbled out faster now. When body cam footage gets logged, it automatically creates an off-site sync on a cloud server. It's new, just implemented as a failsafe after some evidence went missing some time ago. Marcus felt his pulse quicken. And? The main file from your stop was corrupted. Deliberately, I'm sure. But a partial sync went through before someone could stop it. Jacob pulled out a flash drive, his hand trembling. It's not the whole stop, just about 3 minutes. But it's enough. Marcus took the drive, keeping his expression neutral despite the surge of hope. What's on it? Burke recognizing you. The way he spoke to you. How he handled you. Jacob met Marcus's eyes for the first time. And you telling him you're the state attorney. His reaction. It's all there. Marcus nodded slowly. Why are you doing this? Jacob looked down. My brother got stopped some time ago. Similar situation. Nobody believed him either. After verifying the footage at a secure location, Marcus moved quickly. The technician was given temporary housing outside the county. The file was authenticated by digital forensics. By afternoon, Marcus had made his decision. Release it, he told Daniel, over a secure line. Full context. Everything we know about the pattern. Daniel's voice was steady. Once this goes out, there's no going back. There was never going back, Marcus replied. Not from the moment he recognized me on that road. At 4:30 that afternoon, Daniel's story hit. The footage played across screens throughout the state. Logan Burke's face twisted with contempt, his voice dripping with old hatred. Look who grew up thinking he's somebody special. Still remember you walking home after we took your backpack, Reed? The camera captured Logan's rough handling, Marcus's calm dignity, and the pivotal moment. Deputy, you should call your supervisor and think very carefully about what happens next. I'm the newly appointed state attorney." The shock on Logan's face, followed not by professional retreat, but by rage and escalation, played in living rooms across the county. Phones began ringing immediately. News vans converged on the sheriff's office. Social media exploded with outrage and calls for justice. By evening, 3 more victims had contacted Daniel, with similar stories of encounters with Logan Burke. At 7:15 that evening, Sheriff Harlan Mercer appeared before cameras, his composed exterior barely concealing his fury. "Deputy Burke has been placed on administrative leave pending a full investigation," he announced, framing it as proper procedure rather than admission of wrongdoing. "The Sheriff's Department is committed to transparency and proper conduct." Back at Evelyn's house, Marcus watched the conference with his mother and sister. For the first time in days, Evelyn's face relaxed into a genuine smile. "They can't hide it now," she said softly. Sophia's phone buzzed. She read the message and let out a relieved sigh. School board just postponed their review of that bogus complaint indefinitely. Marcus nodded, allowing himself to feel cautious hope. The tide was turning. Then the broadcast cut to a side entrance of the sheriff's office, where Logan Burke was exiting the building. Unlike Mercer's controlled appearance, Logan looked unhinged, face flushed, jaw tight with fury. He shoved past reporters, ignoring questions as cameras captured his rage for the entire state to see. "That's the real Logan," Evelyn said quietly. "The one I always warned you about." Marcus sat across from 2 state investigators in a secured conference room downtown, miles from Mercer's reach. The table between them was covered with documents, complaint forms, incident reports, and testimonials that had materialized since the footage went public. A small television in the corner replayed Logan's furious exit from the sheriff's office on mute. His rage now a silent loop for the whole state to witness. "This goes back at least several years," said Investigator Martinez, sliding another file forward. "Traffic stops concentrated in 3 specific areas, mostly targeting Black and Latino drivers. The pattern is undeniable." Marcus nodded, studying a spreadsheet of dates and locations. "And the evidence handling issues always follow the same sequence," agreed Investigator Dawson. "Dash camera malfunctions, body cameras switched off at critical moments, chain of custody problems." The room hummed with focused energy. For the first time since Logan had recognized him on that dark stretch of road, Marcus felt momentum gathering behind truth. His phone buzzed. Daniel's message read, "3 more former deputies willing to talk. 1 has documentation. We're going to need additional security for witnesses," Marcus said. "Mercer's people have already reached Raymond Sutter." Dawson nodded grimly. "We can arrange safe houses through the state office. No local involvement." The door opened as Marcus's aide, Tessa, entered with a stack of fresh printouts. "These just came through from the records request. Settlement payments authorized through county legal over the past decade, all sealed with non-disclosure agreements." Marcus scanned the first page, his eyes narrowing. "Several payments in the last few years, all approved through the same administrative channel. All signed off by Judge Wilson," Tessa added. "Mercer's golf partner," Marcus said quietly. Martinez whistled low. "That's not coincidence." The conference room phone rang. Tessa answered, her expression shifting as she listened. "It's for you," she said to Marcus, her voice suddenly tight. "Ethics Committee." Marcus took the receiver, maintaining his composed exterior while listening to the voice on the other end. The others watched his face, seeing only the slightest tightening around his eyes. "I understand," he said finally. "I'll cooperate fully with the review. Yes, tomorrow at 9. He placed the phone down carefully, like it might shatter. "Marcus Bell," he said flatly. "Confidential informant from the West Ridge trafficking case last year. He's claiming I coerced his testimony and threatened his family to secure cooperation. Martinez frowned. That's absurd. That case was clean. Clean doesn't matter, Marcus said. Only the accusation matters. Ethics review starts tomorrow morning. Full procedural halt on my current investigations. Dawson slammed his palm on the table. That's too convenient. It's choreographed, Marcus replied. Mercer knew exactly where to hit. The room went quiet as implications settled. The ethics review would force Marcus to defend himself, diverting resources and attention from Mercer and Logan. It would plant doubt in the public mind, muddying the narrative just as it clarified. Marcus's phone buzzed again. Daniel again. But this time when Marcus read the message, his stomach tightened into a cold knot. What is it? Tessa asked. Robert, Marcus said, his voice hollow. Former county clerk who promised Daniel records of altered police reports. They just found him in his garage. Apparent suicide. When? Martinez demanded. 2 hours ago, right after he called Daniel to set up a meeting. Dawson's face darkened. That's not suicide. No, Marcus agreed. That's a message. The sudden shift was dizzying. Hours earlier, they had been riding a wave of public outrage and emerging evidence. Now a man was dead, and Marcus himself was under investigation. The pattern was too precise to be coincidence. Outside the window, night had fallen over the city. The investigation room that had felt like a fortress now seemed vulnerable. Someone powerful enough to reach across jurisdictions and silence witnesses wasn't merely defending a rogue deputy. They were eliminating threats systematically. Marcus looked down at the ethics committee notice Tessa had placed before him. The formal language of the complaint blurred as he considered the choreographed precision of the attack. They're not just protecting Logan, Daniel said, breaking the heavy silence. His voice was quiet, but certain. This war just got bigger than the county. Marcus met his gaze, understanding completely. Whatever Mercer was protecting went far beyond one traffic stop, one corrupt deputy, or even one department. The machine they had disturbed had connections reaching into places they hadn't yet imagined. The next morning arrived with gray skies that matched Marcus's mood. He had barely slept, the ethics complaint and Robert's death weighing on him like physical burdens. His phone rang just after 8, jolting him from his thoughts. Marcus. His mother's voice sounded thin with fear. Sophia's been in an accident. She's okay, but where? The word came out sharp as he was already reaching for his keys. County Memorial, emergency room. Marcus broke every speed limit getting to the hospital. He found Sophia sitting on an exam table, a nurse applying butterfly bandages to a cut above her eyebrow. Her left arm was wrapped and purple bruises were forming along her jawline. What happened? Marcus asked, crossing the room in 3 strides. Sophia's eyes found his, blazing with anger beneath the fear. A pickup. Dark blue or black. Mud on the license plate. It came out of nowhere on Bridle Path Road, just ran me straight off into the ditch. Her voice trembled. I was just checking on Mom's house. It followed me from there. The nurse stepped away, giving them privacy. They didn't even stop, Sophia continued. Just slowed down enough for me to see them laughing, then gunned it. Marcus's jaw tightened. Did you recognize anyone? No. They were wearing caps pulled low. She reached for his hand. This isn't random, is it? No. Marcus helped her to her feet. It's a message. Outside in the parking lot, Daniel was waiting for them. One look at Sophia's face told him everything. We need to move your mother somewhere safe, Daniel said. This is getting worse. I already called her, Sophia said. She's packing a bag. My friend Leslie can take her in for a while. Marcus nodded, his mind calculating. This wasn't just harassment anymore. They were escalating to physical harm. The pieces were coming together in a pattern he couldn't ignore. 3 hours later, after settling Sophia at his hotel, and making sure Evelyn was safely relocated. Marcus met with Tessa and a state data analyst named Hector in a secure conference room. "Show me again," Marcus said, staring at the dispatch logs from the night of his traffic stop. Hector highlighted sections on his laptop. "See these timestamps? Logan Burke was originally assigned to patrol the western sector that night, but his route was reassigned to include Hollow Creek Road." "Who authorized the change?" Marcus asked. "That's the interesting part." Hector pointed to a code. "This indicates approval from someone with command-level clearance. Only Mercer or his direct deputies could make this change." Marcus leaned back, letting the implications sink in. "So, Logan didn't just happen to spot me. Someone knew I was coming through town and made sure he'd be there." "Exactly," Tessa said. "And look at the timing. The reassignment happened shortly after you arrived at your mother's house. Someone was watching." "But why?" Marcus murmured. "Why set up that specific encounter?" The answer came later that evening. Marcus brought dinner to his mother at Leslie's house, finding her sitting quietly with an old photo album open on her lap. "I should have told you years ago," Evelyn said without preamble. Marcus sat beside her. "Tell me what, Mom?" She touched a photograph of his father. Tall, serious-faced, wearing the uniform of the county works department. "Your father didn't just fix roads," she said softly. "He saw things, heard things. Working all over the county gave him access to places most folks never go." Her fingers trembled as she continued. "He started noticing patterns. Deputies taking cash during stops that never got reported. Black families losing property through false violations. Evidence going missing from the impound yard he sometimes maintained." Marcus felt a chill spread through him. "What did he do?" "He kept notes," Evelyn said. "For a couple of years. Names, dates, places. He was building a case to take to the state." "And then he died," Marcus said, his voice hollow. Evelyn nodded. "Car accident on a clear day. No witnesses. I never believed it was an accident, but I had you kids to protect." "Mercer was already with the department then," Marcus realized aloud. "Deputy Mercer back then," she confirmed, working directly under Sheriff Harmon. Marcus felt pieces clicking into place. "You think they knew about Dad's notes?" "I know they did," Evelyn said. "A week before he died, someone broke into our shed, but took nothing. Your father said they were looking for his evidence." She stood suddenly. "Come with me." She led him to the back of Leslie's guest room, where she had stacked her hastily packed belongings. From beneath a pile of clothes, she pulled out a dusty cardboard box. "I've kept it hidden all these years," she said. "Never knew what to do with it." Marcus opened the box with careful hands. Inside lay a worn leather notebook, its pages filled with his father's neat handwriting. Names, dates, amounts, locations, all meticulously documented. As he flipped through, certain names jumped out. Harmon, Mercer, Pike Sr., Logan's father. "They've been hurting people for generations," Evelyn said. "And when they saw you coming back as state attorney, they got scared. That stop wasn't random. They've always been afraid of what your father knew, and now what you might find out." Marcus stared at the notebook, feeling the weight of history and truth in his hands. His traffic stop wasn't just about old bullying or current corruption. It was connected to decades of buried crimes. And his father's silenced voice. That same afternoon, Marcus arranged a crucial meeting. The location, Judge Helena Price's private chamber, accessed through a service entrance to avoid watchful eyes. One by one, they arrived separately. Evelyn with her head held high, Sophia still moving carefully from her accident, Daniel with a recorder tucked discreetly in his pocket. And finally, Judge Price herself, her face solemn with purpose. "I apologize for the secrecy," Judge Price said, locking the door behind them. "But we can't be too careful now." Marcus placed the worn leather notebook on the table. "This belonged to my father. He documented everything before his death." "Which wasn't an accident," Evelyn added, her voice steady despite the pain. Not with what he knew. Judge Price slipped on reading glasses and opened the notebook. Her expression shifted from professional curiosity to shock as she turned the pages. "This is extraordinarily detailed," she said, running her finger along the neat rows of dates, locations, and amounts. "Your father was meticulous." Daniel leaned forward. "May I?" The judge nodded, passing him several pages. Daniel's eyes narrowed as he scanned them. "Look here," he said, pointing to a series of entries. P.S. followed by dollar amounts, then MDAT approving transfers. "Pike Sr. and Mercer, Harlan," Marcus translated. Sophia, still bruised from her forced accident, studied another section. "He tracked land seizures, too. All these properties. They're mostly on the east side where black families lived." "Exactly," Marcus confirmed. "They'd plant evidence during stops, create cause for seizure. Then the land would end up sold to the same 3 development companies." Judge Price pointed to repeated references to H.A. "Harmon approval," Evelyn explained. "The sheriff before Mercer. They were partners before Mercer took over." Daniel's finger traced a notation that was circled several times. "T.J. Riverside accident? What's this?" Evelyn's face darkened. "Terrence Jackson, 17-year-old boy found in the river. They called it a drowning accident. But rumors said he'd been running from deputies after witnessing something he shouldn't have." The page before mentions a warehouse seizure with unusually high cash amounts, Marcus noted. Dates match. Judge Price closed the notebook carefully, her decision made. "This constitutes sufficient cause for sealed warrants," she said. "I'll authorize them through Judge Castillo in the next county. Mercer won't have friends there." Daniel nodded. "I have enough to build a timeline connecting these historical patterns directly to what happened to you, Marcus. The story isn't just about one traffic stop. It's about generations of abuse." "The question is timing," Marcus said. "We need to move carefully. If Mercer gets wind..." A soft knock interrupted them. Judge Price's clerk whispered through the door about an unexpected visitor. "Send him back," the judge instructed after hearing the name. The door opened to reveal a man in his late 30s wearing plain clothes, but carrying himself with the unmistakable posture of law enforcement. Marcus recognized him immediately. "The second deputy from the traffic stop, Deputy Ellis," Marcus acknowledged, his voice neutral. The man looked nervous, glancing over his shoulder despite the closed door. "I shouldn't be here, yet here you are," Daniel observed. Deputy Ellis took a deep breath. "What happened that night was wrong. I knew it was wrong when it happened, but I didn't stop it." "Why come forward now?" Judge Price asked. "Because it's worse than you think," Ellis said. "Logan was waiting for you, Mr. Reed. Mercer had him positioned there specifically." Sophia leaned forward. "You're saying the stop was planned?" "Completely." Ellis nodded. "Logan bragged about it afterward. Said the new state attorney needed to learn his place before he started digging into the old files." Marcus and Evelyn exchanged glances. "They knew about Dad's investigation," Marcus said quietly. "They've been scared for years that someone would find what your father discovered," Ellis continued. "When they heard you were appointed, Mercer pulled Logan aside, told him to make sure you understood what happens to people who threaten the system here." "You have proof of this?" Judge Price asked. Ellis nodded. "Text messages. And I recorded Logan talking about it at a barbecue some time ago." Daniel sat up straighter. "That connects Mercer directly to the intimidation." The deputy's eyes darted to the door again. "There's more. Mercer's called in off-duty deputies tonight. They're moving boxes from the old record storage at the county property warehouse. He knows something's coming." "When?" Marcus asked sharply. "Right now," Ellis whispered. "He's clearing out anything that might connect to old cases. Said it's spring cleaning. But everyone knows what it means." Judge Price reached for her phone. "I'll expedite the warrants immediately." Marcus watched the deputy's nervous face, seeing genuine fear there, A man breaking ranks with everything he had been taught to protect. For a moment, he saw a flash of what justice might actually look like. Not vengeance, but truth finally rising to the surface. Night pressed against the county records archive, a squat cinder-block building on the edge of government property. Marcus crouched behind an unmarked sedan, watching shadows move under yellow security lights. 2 pickup trucks and Mercer's personal SUV were parked haphazardly near the loading dock. "They're already inside?" Marcus whispered to the state agent beside him. Daniel adjusted his position behind them, camera ready. "How many do you count?" "At least 5, the lead agent said through her earpiece. "Sheriff Mercer, Deputy Burke, and 3 others moving boxes to vehicles." Marcus's pulse quickened as he spotted a figure emerge with a stack of folders. Even from this distance, he recognized Mercer's confident stride. For a man supposedly conducting routine business, the sheriff moved with urgent purpose. "Team's in position," the agent confirmed. "Move on my signal." Marcus checked his watch. Judge Price's expedited warrants had come through just in time. He thought of his father's notebook, of decades of buried injustice, of Evelyn's quiet certainty that something had killed the truth. After years, that truth was about to breathe again. "Now," the agent commanded. Vehicles surged forward, headlights blazing to life. Marcus moved with the first team, badge displayed prominently. The element of surprise lasted exactly 3 seconds before someone shouted a warning. Chaos erupted across the gravel lot. One deputy sprinted for his truck. Another froze in the glare of headlights, arms filled with boxes. Near the building's entrance, a metal barrel glowed orange, papers already curling into ash as flames licked upward. "State agents, nobody move!" The lead investigator's voice boomed through a megaphone. Mercer dropped his load and bolted toward his SUV. Files scattered across the pavement like fallen leaves, loose papers skating away on the night breeze. One agent tackled the nearest deputy, while 2 more closed in on Mercer. But Logan was nowhere in sight. Daniel sprinted toward the burning barrel, capturing evidence of destruction while state agents secured the perimeter. A thick folder slid from Mercer's grip as agents pinned him against his vehicle. Cash spilled onto the ground, neat stacks of bills bound with rubber bands, alongside a portable hard drive. "Where's Burke?" Marcus demanded, scanning the chaos. His answer came as a door slammed somewhere inside the building. Through the glass entrance, Marcus caught a glimpse of movement. Logan disappearing into the archive's shadowed interior. "Burke's inside," he called to the lead agent. "He saw me!" The agent nodded grimly. "We'll secure the exits. Be careful. He's cornered now." Marcus understood what that meant. Logan had always been dangerous, but a trapped Logan was something worse. "I'm activating the release," Daniel called, fingers flying across his phone screen. "Everything we've gathered goes public in 30 seconds. No one can bury this now." The timing was perfect. Even if they destroyed every file in the building, the truth had already escaped. Daniel's investigation would reach every major outlet simultaneously. Names, dates, settlements, patterns of abuse, stretching back decades. The story would live no matter what happened inside. Marcus moved towards the entrance, badge in hand. Behind him, he heard Mercer's voice rising in desperate protest as agents recited his rights. The sheriff's carefully constructed world was collapsing in real time. Inside the building, emergency lights cast alternating shadows and harsh illumination across rows of metal shelving. The air smelled of dust and paper, and now smoke. Somewhere deeper in the stacks, Marcus heard movement. A drawer slamming. Footsteps on linoleum. An alarm suddenly shrieked to life, its wail bouncing off concrete walls. Sprinklers activated in sections, water hissing down onto decades of county records. Through the noise, Marcus heard a crash, shelves toppling somewhere ahead. "Logan!" he called, moving cautiously between the rows. "It's over." No answer came, but a light flickered at the end of a long aisle. Marcus moved toward it, past shelves labeled with years he recognized from his childhood. He passed sections marked with case numbers that might have contained his father's investigations, now empty or in disarray. Papers drifted through the air, caught in the updraft from a vent, spinning like confetti in the emergency lights. Some were already soaked, ink bleeding across decades-old reports. Others floated dry as autumn leaves, waiting for the water to reach them. The deeper Marcus moved into the archive, the more certain he became that Logan wasn't running. The deputy had seen him arrive, had watched the state agent swarm the property, had gone inside rather than fleeing. This wasn't escape. This was choice. A shadow moved between shelves ahead, and Marcus slowed his approach. Years of history stretched between them, from school hallways to this moment. He stepped around a toppled cabinet, documents spilled across the wet floor like the aftermath of some paper storm. Through gaps in the shelving, Marcus caught glimpses of Logan moving with purpose, not panic. The deputy was searching for something specific, not running from justice, but racing to destroy one final piece of evidence. Marcus rounded the corner into an open area where administrative desks sat abandoned for the night. The emergency lights pulsed red across walls, lined with the county's oldest records. And there, standing amid scattered files with a lighter in his hand, was Logan Burke. Marcus moved deeper into the archive, his footsteps soft against the damp floor. The narrow aisles closed around him like a maze, metal shelves towering on either side. Emergency lights pulsed crimson through the darkness, painting everything in flashes of blood-reddened shadow. Paper dust hung in the air, disturbed by their movements and the spray of water from overhead sprinklers. Logan's footsteps echoed between the stacks, not fleeing, but searching, hunting. "You always thought you were better than us." Logan's voice bounced between the shelves, disembodied in the red-tinted darkness. "Better than this town. Better than me." Marcus rounded a corner, and there he was. Deputy Logan Burke, standing among scattered files, a metal shelf bar gripped in one hand. Years collapsed between them. The boy who had tormented him and the man who had tried to destroy him stood just feet away. "All that education," Logan sneered. "All those fancy suits, that big important title, state attorney." He spat the words like they tasted foul. "Doesn't change what you are." "And what's that?" Marcus's voice remained steady, despite the hammering in his chest. "Same scared kid I used to own." Logan's smile flickered in the emergency light. "You came back for revenge. All this justice talk, that's just gift wrap." Marcus took a careful step forward. "You never understood power, Logan. You only understood cruelty." Another step. "You were never strong, just protected by your father, by Mercer, by a system that fed on people it thought wouldn't fight back." Logan's phone buzzed in his pocket. He yanked it out, his face twisting as he saw the screen. "What is this?" Marcus knew without looking. Daniel's story going live right now. Names, dates, settlements, everything. "You think anybody cares about ancient history?" Logan's voice cracked, betraying his panic. "Thousands of views already," Marcus said. "And climbing." Logan hurled the phone against a shelf. It shattered, pieces skittering across the wet floor. "You don't get to win. Not you." He lunged forward, swinging the metal bar in a vicious arc. Marcus dodged, but the cramped space worked against him. The bar caught him across the shoulder, pain exploding down his arm as he crashed into a shelf. Folders rained down, scattering decades-old papers across the puddles forming on the floor. Logan pressed his advantage, driving Marcus backward. "You were supposed to stay down." Another swing barely missed Marcus's head, denting the metal shelf behind him. You were supposed to know your place. Marcus caught the next blow against his forearm, grunting with the impact. He kicked out, catching Logan's knee. The deputy stumbled but didn't fall. They crashed into another shelf, sending a heavy box tumbling down. It split open on impact, spewing yellowed papers across the floor. Old school records, disciplinary reports, and a single typed statement slid into the light. Marcus caught a glimpse of his own name, his father's, a confession about a staged theft in the locker room. Logan saw it too. His eyes widened with recognition. They were afraid of your father, Logan said, breathing hard. Mercer knew he was gathering evidence. That scholarship would have gotten you out, given you connections. So we made sure you lost it. Marcus stared at the paper, years of humiliation suddenly reframed. It was never just bullying. It was their plan all along. Your daddy should have kept his mouth shut, Logan snarled. And so should you, he charged again, wild with desperation. Marcus sidestepped, using Logan's momentum against him. They crashed into a desk, sending a computer monitor smashing to the floor. Logan's elbow caught Marcus's jaw, snapping his head back. Stars exploded behind his eyes, but Marcus didn't break, didn't lose control. Years of discipline held firm as he absorbed the blow and pushed back. They grappled in the narrow space, crashing from shelf to shelf. Logan fought with the frantic energy of a drowning man. Marcus fought with the steady resolve of someone who had been preparing for this moment his entire life. A final desperate lunge sent them both to the floor. They rolled through puddles of water and scattered papers, Logan still clawing for advantage, but his strength was failing, panic replacing skill. Marcus finally pinned him, knee pressed into Logan's chest, hands gripping his wrists against the wet floor. It's over, Marcus said, his voice steady despite his ragged breathing. The emergency exit door burst open. Flashlight beams cut through the smoky air as state agents rushed in, weapons drawn. They froze at the tableau before them, the state attorney pinning the struggling deputy to the ground amid the wreckage of decades of buried secrets. Logan's face twisted with rage, and then, as the reality of his situation finally hit him, crumpled into naked fear. The mask that had protected him for years had finally, irrevocably fallen away. The archive doors burst open to a flood of agents, firefighters, and cameras from reporters drawn by Daniel's release and the mounting public scandal. Light poured in from all sides, harsh beams cutting through the smoky air. Marcus stepped back from Logan, his suit torn and stained, but his composure unbroken. He stood tall as state investigators swarmed around them, securing the scene and helping him to his feet. You okay, sir? An agent asked. Marcus nodded, wiping blood from his lip. I'm fine, don't let him near any evidence. Outside, shouts erupted as more vehicles arrived. Through the open door, Marcus saw Sheriff Mercer being dragged back from the tree line, his escape cut short. 2 agents marched him across the gravel parking lot, his hands cuffed behind him. In the back of his county SUV, half-burned files stuck out of a hastily packed box. A canvas bag had spilled open on the passenger seat, revealing stacks of banded cash without any evidence tags. Found over $40,000 in unmarked bills, an agent reported, holding up the bag. No sign-out records, no case numbers. Logan thrashed against the hands holding him. You think this changes anything? You think these people care what happens to folks like you? Marcus watched as the cuffs clicked around Logan's wrists. They're watching now, he said quietly, and they were. News cameras captured everything. Local residents who had arrived after hearing the commotion stood behind yellow tape. Among them were faces Marcus recognized, people who had turned away when he was a boy, who had pretended not to see when boys like Logan hunted boys like him. Daniel pushed through the crowd, recorder in hand, face flushed with vindication. It's all going live, he called to Marcus. Every name, every settlement, every cover-up. Nobody's walking this back. Firefighters moved through the building, securing it after extinguishing the small fires Mercer's team had started. An evidence tech emerged with the box that had fallen during the fight, the one containing proof of the staged theft that had nearly cost Marcus his scholarship. Sir, the tech said, holding up the confession statement. This matches what was in your father's notebook. Marcus took the paper gently, feeling its weight in his hands. Years of shame transformed into proof with a single sheet of paper. Judge Price arrived minutes later, moving with quiet authority through the chaos. She signed emergency orders on the hood of a state vehicle, documents freezing county records, reopening sealed cases, and establishing witness protections. Her face remained impassive, but her eyes met Marcus's with a look that said she had suspected this corruption for years. We'll need a special prosecutor, she told him. You're too close to this case now. Already have one in mind, Marcus replied. Sophia's car pulled up to the edge of the scene. She stepped out, followed by Evelyn, both women standing straight-backed as they watched Mercer and Logan being loaded into separate vehicles. A county commissioner who had always supported Mercer approached Sophia, stammering apologies. The school board has withdrawn all complaints. There was no basis. We just thought. You thought wrong, Sophia cut him off. Don't worry. We'll be discussing the school's funding needs very publicly next month. Evelyn hadn't spoken. She simply watched as the men who had haunted her family for decades were led away in handcuffs. When Logan's transport door slammed shut, she finally closed her eyes and let her shoulders drop, exhaling a breath that seemed decades old. The sun was rising by the time the scene was secured. Marcus stood with his family as Daniel approached with news from his contacts across the state. The story's everywhere, he said. 3 more deputies have come forward. Judge Price has approved review of every case Logan or Mercer touched in the last decade. Marcus nodded. Schedule a press conference for noon. By midday, the county courthouse steps were packed with cameras, reporters, and citizens. The mood was electric, a current of disbelief and revelation running through the crowd. People who had lived under Mercer's shadow for years stood shoulder to shoulder, whispering about records and names they recognized in Daniel's reporting. Marcus approached this podium, looking out over the faces. He saw fear, hope, anger, and relief all mixed together. The microphones captured his first deep breath before he spoke. The badge was never the law, Marcus said, his voice steady and clear. Truth was, the morning sun painted Hollow Creek Road differently than it had ever looked before. No flashing blue lights, no shadows of fear. Just the gentle amber of dawn touching the asphalt where everything had changed. Marcus stood at the roadside, his polished shoes collecting dew from the grass. Evelyn and Sophia waited by the car, giving him a moment alone with the spot where, just days earlier, Logan Burke had tried to force him back into powerlessness. Last night's emergency hearings had stretched until midnight. Judge Price had denied bail for both Mercer and Logan, citing flight risk and the seriousness of the charges. The courthouse steps had been packed with reporters, former victims, and curious onlookers witnessing something most thought impossible, the most powerful men in the county being treated like the criminals they were. Marcus took 3 steps to the exact spot where his face had been pressed against the hood of his car. The memory was still fresh. Logan's breath on his neck, the cold metal against his cheek, passing headlights slowing to watch his humiliation. But standing there now, in daylight, the power of that memory was fading. You okay? Sophia called, her voice gentle against the morning quiet. Marcus nodded, not turning yet. Just need another minute. Headlines across the state had used words like systemic, decades long, and protected corruption. Daniel's full investigative piece had dropped online at midnight, years of abuses mapped in devastating detail. 3 more deputies had come forward overnight, offering testimony in exchange for consideration. The prosecutor's office was already reviewing dozens of convictions tied to tainted evidence. Marcus's phone buzzed. Another text from the governor's office requesting a meeting. He slipped the phone back into his pocket and looked down the empty stretch of road. The same trees stood watch, the same fields spread out behind them. But the road itself felt different, like a spell had been broken. Evelyn walked over and stood beside him, her hand finding his. "Your father would be proud," she said quietly. "Not just of what you did, but how you did it." Marcus squeezed her hand. I wish he could have seen it. He saw enough. Evelyn's eyes were clear and certain. He knew what you would become. Sophia joined them, carrying 3 paper cups of coffee from the thermos they had brought. The school board president called this morning, said they want to partner with the new legal aid program for students' families. She smiled slightly. Amazing how helpful people get when the bullies are gone. Marcus accepted the coffee, feeling its warmth against his palms. "We'll need to be careful. Systems don't fix themselves overnight. But they do fix," Sophia said firmly. Yesterday's press conference had been the most watched local broadcast in county history. Marcus had announced the creation of the James Reed Public Integrity Task Force, named after his father, alongside scholarship funds for students from families affected by wrongful policing. The governor had immediately pledged matching funds. "What happens to this place now?" Sophia asked, looking up and down on the empty road. Marcus took a deep breath. "It becomes just another road." That was the real victory. Not the headlines or indictments, but this. Standing on Hollow Creek Road without fear, without shame, without the weight of old humiliations. The place that Logan had tried to use as a trap had become the trigger for his own downfall. Evelyn stared at the shoulder where Logan had stood that night. "Sometimes justice takes the long way around," she said softly. A car passed, slowing briefly. The driver, an older white man Marcus didn't recognize, nodded respectfully before continuing on. No staring, no judgment, just acknowledgement. "Ready?" Sophia asked. Marcus looked once more at the spot where everything had changed. The ditch where Logan had made him stand with his hands on the hood. The stretch of road where a second cruiser had appeared, making the scene feel staged. The exact place where a system thought it could crush him one final time. Now it was just earth, asphalt, and morning light. The power was gone. Marcus turned from this empty roadside and walked back to his family, leaving the past standing there alone. The road behind him was just a road now, no longer a battlefield or a place of shame. As they drove away, Hollow Creek Road grew smaller in the rearview mirror, diminishing with each mile until it disappeared altogether, taking nothing with it that belonged to them. If you enjoyed the story, leave a like to support the channel, and subscribe so that you do not miss out on the next one. On the screen, I have picked 2 special stories just for you. Have a wonderful day.